So, welcome everybody. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Global Transformation Circus. Because let's face it, it's a circus. It's messy, it's chaos, and it's all over the place, more often than not. My name is Michael. I have the privilege to run a wonderful organization called Global Human Pharma Services. We are looking after all markets worldwide, supporting them with everything around commercial operations, medical affairs operations. If you want to understand more about that part of what I'm doing, check out my LinkedIn profile. You will find the videos of my presentations last year and the year before that Dario and his wonderful team made available there online. This is not what I'm going to talk about today. So, before getting into the topic, I would like to share one or two observations that I took away with me from yesterday. Because rightly so, we are all very busy with AI and discussing about AI, but I'm under the impression that the discussion that we're having are taking a little bit of a different spin. We heard Marco yesterday talking about the 7 cardinal sins of AI. Wow, that's a new spin to the overall discussion. We heard Alyssa talking about the human algorithm of AI, putting the human in the loop first and on priority, and that for sure was amplified by Carlos, who said, well, let's face it, if we don't put the human first, transformation are shit. So, that's a bold statement, and if we don't put the human first, that's probably true. If we do transformation to cut costs and fire our people, that's first not very smart, and second, it's shit, yeah? But I'm doing transformation since many, many years. I feel like the chief circus officer since at least 15 years, since I joined Big Pharma back in 2011. And I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it. I love transformation. I love see change happening to the better, creating value, creating speed, creating quality in what we are doing, and also enabling wider teams to do more with less. This can be a really satisfying journey, right? And before joining Pharma, I was many years in consulting. I was looking after business process re-engineering, restructuring, change management kind of topics. So basically my entire professional life, I was spending on changing the way people are operating. And that's the topic at hand. And I promise I will not talk about AI, not at all, because I believe as we are all working in socioeconomic systems, there are some eternal truths that are always true, that we need to manage actively and that we tend to forget. A couple of disclaimers. The views expressed are solely my own, and all examples, of course, I made them up to be prepared for today. That's all hypothetical. And of course, I got inspired by Gen AI when I was preparing for this session. There is no secret around it. If there's anything weird, please blame the robot. So let's get going. Welcome to the Transformation Circus. It's showtime. As I mentioned already, we are managing a wild, chaotic circus. When you listen to these fancy people on stage talking about these fancy global transformations that look strategic, that looks clean, that look delivering the performance that was expected, more often than not, that's probably not the full truth. Yeah? Under the hood, it's messy, it's chaotic, and this is what I want to talk about. So the ringmaster is here to keep everything together and to tame the circus, to manage the chaos and to make sure that what you are doing is delivering the value that is expected. There are 3 parts to my presentation. One is I will introduce you to a couple of characters that you will always meet when you are trying to manage a global transformation. I will share 3 of these hypothetically totally made up examples with you, and then I will try to land some takeaways with you that I'm happy also to get some feedback. A couple of key accountabilities of such a ringmaster, who's the master of chaos, keeper of sanity, I would frame it. This guy needs to manage the performers. This guy needs to keep the chaos monkeys in check, and we'll get in a moment into a little bit more detail what that means. This guy needs to make sure that he's not getting eaten by the lions, and very importantly, this guy needs to win over the wider audience. meaning not only the direct stakeholders, but in a global transformation, it's multi-stakeholder mayhem, so the wider audience need to be entertained and need to be tamed. And that's all about the ringmaster, and very visibly, that's not a one-man show, that's a team effort. So let's talk about the team. Let's meet the apes, the smart apes that you need on the bus. And there are two things very critical about these smart apes. One is, if you can, you need to cherry pick these people yourself. Ideally, you have the approval to build that team that you need to run the transformation. Second thing that is really critical is make sure that there's enough external freshness on this team. Because if you are ending up with a transformation team that is full with people that carry all this legacy of this exact organization that you are supposed to transform, it's not going to happen. So, a couple of key characters here, and I'm not saying this is complete, but to my experience, these are some of the most crucial ones. Let's start with the navigator. This guy is really your co-pilot, your wingman, so to say, making sure that whatever you do and whatever you transform and what you are proposing is fully in sync with the business priorities. This is a role that you urgently need because it helps you to anticipate the many problems that will come your way. And in a global services setup, these teams tend to be called planning and validation or so. They are putting together the business priorities, the business cases. They document the value that the transformation is about to bring. Then you have the engineers. And when I say engineer, I don't mean engineer by training. I mean engineer in the widest sense. So what an engineer stands for, yeah? So these people are conceptualizing. They are creating the service model that is scalable and that is providing the value that the business case was promising. In a typical global services setup, these teams would be called services development. And then the next character, I would call them the fixers. Those people are really getting it done. These are teams that are traveling the world, that are sitting with the teams whose activities need to change. They need to change their behavior. They need to change the way of working, and these teams are actually getting it done. They're getting it done in corporate, in the regions, in the markets. They are getting it done in your global centers that are delivering the services. They are actually changing the way of working. And then, being an engineer myself, this is something that I pathologically overlook, but I learned my lesson. You need to have these performers on board. Socially brilliant people that are able to build bridges across functions and that are really able to rally the crowd. So this is all about the real communication, the celebration. There's no such thing in a corporate environment like over-celebration. You need to celebrate also the smallest wins so that there is a spreading of word happening and that you create a positive buzz around what you are doing. This is super important, and you should have this small communications and change management team in place very, very early on. Typically, this is an afterthought, and you are coming too late to the party when you have grown, the strategic importance of what you are doing has increased, and also the political pressure is increasing. So then, it's almost too late. You need to have this early in place. And of course, this is a team sport, as I mentioned. Then, the monkeys that you haven't invited, you have not hired them, but they will still show up, and you need to do something about it. Couple of key characters that you see: the territorial monkey that is fiercely competing every change, then the monkey that is really comfortable in their own comfort zones, just not seeing any need, no sense of urgency to change, just being happy in the comfort zone and being stuck in the 90s. Then you have the mischievous chimps and the juggling howlers, a little bit of a similar character but still different. Specifically, the chimp is very entertaining, fun, and disruptive, and they seem to be part of this journey, and probably they want to be, but they start everything but getting nothing done. Yeah? So that's a problem. We all know these characters. And on the other side, you have these multitasking people that are not only showing up on your transformation, but probably on 10 other transformations that are happening at the same time in the same organization. And also that's not really helpful because successful teams are focused on what they need to do. So you really need to make sure that you spot them early and that you contain them. Otherwise, they will take over your tent and it's probably burning away. Super important. The lion tamer, that's the last character. This is your executive sponsor. And I know it sounds terribly obvious that you need to have a lion tamer in place, but regularly you realize too late that you don't have a lion tamer in place. 3 easy questions to understand if you have a sponsor with you. Do you have a name? Do you have a phone number? And do you have access? Easy enough, right? But if the answer is no to any of the 3, you don't have a sponsor. And then don't even enter the ring. Because when you start driving global transformation and things will go south, not everything will be smooth. It's chaos, it's failure, it's all of it. You need to have the air cover to have the approval to continue going. Yeah? This air cover is critically important. These people are keeping the board aligned also strategically, securing the commitment that is needed to do what needs to be done. So let's move into 3 little use cases that I want to share with you. The case 1 is the billion-dollar no-brainer. We are talking about MICE, meeting, incentives, congresses, and events. And I'm sure you are all aware, as you are in pharma, this is a big-ticket spend item, right? Back the days, that was a yearly spend of more than $1 billion. $1 billion. I was not aware that these kind of amounts are existing in a corporate world, but I learned a lot since then. So that was a yearly spend. The business case was talking about 10 to 15% of savings. We offered much more disciplined demand management. We offered centralized logistics and procurement. And we offered much optimized compliance and transparency reporting, all very important things in the category of MICE. But what happened? You see this little guy there with a scissor, not a little guy, it was actually a big shot. So he had a scissor in his hand, and this is what happened, yeah? He took the scissor and cut the tightrope that I was trying to balance. And that was the point I realized there was no lion tamer, there was no sponsor, there was no strategic alignment, and 1 year of really hard work were put down the drain. So, interestingly enough, me being an engineer, you have seen the business case, no real business pain. Of course there's a business pain. That is a category full of waste, and most often it is still the fact. Yeah? And for me, being trained in lean management, waste is a problem in itself. You want to get rid of this waste in the system, but that's an attitude that is not necessarily shared widely. And the reality was, this one guy with the scissor was a country head who dropped a note into corporate headquarters that landed like a bomb on my desk, and I was almost out of this company. So, critically important. Second example. We are talking about market access and value management. Think about literature search and review, think about global value dossier writing, think about health economics, outcomes research, think about pricing strategies, think about pricing analytics, think about launch sequence strategies, all this fancy stuff, lovely community, full of lovely nerds, very academic in their approach, really wonderful people to work with. This category was mostly outsourced and had excessive spend also to all these fancy agencies that are focusing on exactly these topics, very specialized in what they are doing. The ripple effect of this is that there was very little knowledge, very little proprietary know-how in the company that you could have carried over and provide value, not only over a couple of months, but over years as you are building it up. So when you are typically thinking about global services, you think about offshoring, outsourcing, getting rid of it. That was the exact opposite. These capabilities were considered strategic, and the task here was to internalize these capabilities. So what we did, instead of renting the performers, we started to build these capabilities. We have built out a service catalog, we have defined the deliverables, we have defined the KPIs, we have defined the target costs and all the rest of it, and we looked really hard into our location strategy. And very top line, what we did is we have put the heavy lifting into India, we have put a white glove wrapper around these topics in Dublin, and then very importantly, we have scope this last mile delivery so that these highly paid experts in the corporate center, in the regions, but also in the markets could build on what was coming from India, from Dublin, into their specific environments, so they could add their local nuances on top of these more or less standardized, harmonized deliverables. And that was really working well. So the engineers became very effective, we had performers rallying the crowd, and that was a really good success. So, third and last example, think about a rapidly growing oncology product portfolio and think about commercial operations that was kind of acting on a corporate level, regional level, market level, all over the place, all wonderful people with the best intent, but not coordinated, not operating like a well-oiled machine, not being in sync with each other. So a lot of solo acts everywhere, dropping the ball, intransparent spending, and confused stakeholders because the data didn't line up, the outcomes, the dashboards, the reports were not consistent with each other. So what we did, a little similar to the value and market access story, we mapped out the deliverables, the capabilities, we centralized analytics, forecasting, and the brand insights. We again focused on this last mile team so that they were able to build on top of the deliverables that were coming their way, creating more space to actually create the insights, because all the busy work was gone into the delivery center and a lot of pre-processing was happening that they could build on. Very effective model, which was structured, scalable, and there were unified, harmonized insights because everything built on top of everything else. So the navigator was in place, the engineers were effective, the fixer did their job, and there was a lion tamer. That was a very good thing. Every other month, we had SteerCo meeting where this executive sponsor showed up without exception, demonstrated commitment that this is what is wanted, top down, and sitting with all the peers to make sure everything is aligned. Couple of takeaways here that if nothing else, I would like you to take away. One thing that became obvious: you need to tame the monkeys, yeah? Otherwise, they'll turn your strategy into a wild banana stand. The other thing is, without a lion tamer, you are probably no more than an appetizer, because without these executive sponsors, not any of these transformations are going to happen successfully. And then, no matter how beautiful you think your own business case is, you need to sell the problem first. The problem needs to be acknowledged. A wider environment of stakeholders need to have acknowledged that there is a problem and then only come with your solution and propose it. And then also these transformations, you need to be patient. This needs time, always. There is no quick fix to this stuff. The two success examples that I shared with you took 2 to 3 years each. Before, there was a level of maturity that was just ready for prime time. 2 to 3 years, that was the time that was required to really build it out. And then one of my favorite eternal truths that I really try to embrace as much as possible: always challenge yourself, cannibalize yourself. Because if there's something out there that is making you obsolete, you rather embrace it proactively instead of waiting for these predators to come and chase you. Because in one scenario, you are in the driver's seat. In the other scenario, you are probably only a victim. So cannibalize yourself. And then my last thing, it was a pleasure being here until the next great show. And always take your grit, keep your guts, keep your resilience, take the initiative, and keep your tenacity. I love this grit, so keep your grit. Thank you.